About a year ago, I was out running errands. Meanwhile, my wife was asleep and the kids were playing. It was a Sunday. Eventually, she woke up at 11:30. Then she called and asked me where I was. At that point, I shared my location. I was in Home Depot, or next door at the diner eating. You see, I was 30 minutes away. Immediately, she demanded I come home right that second, clearly upset that she woke up and I wasn't home. Mind you, I had been up since 6:30, doing errands, exercising, and getting the kids settled. I left at 10 a.m. You see, I take care of the kids mainly because I have a flexible schedule. Meanwhile, my wife works part-time, and I make 2x more than her. Well, it took me an hour to get home. During that time, she started calling, yelling at me, saying I'm worthless, and if I didn't want to be around the family, she was going to take the kids and leave. Ever since then, knowing how family courts are, I felt like I am living with an assassin. It feels like she has a target on me and is just waiting to pull the trigger. I've told her numerous times that her statements and threats that day highly affected me. I've even been to therapy and told my therapist. But my wife, my friends, and my parents all told me I needed to get over it and that I was being sensitive. Obviously, my wife was just upset and apologized. Even my therapist said she apologized. Why isn't that enough? Well, it's been a year, and I'm still not over it. Meanwhile, everyone, including my wife, is acting like everything is great. We even just took a week vacation in February as a family. I was there, but I feel like I can't even openly speak to my wife anymore because battle lines have been drawn. Am I the asshole for holding on to my wife's statements a year later and being unable to forgive her? Honestly, I'm acting like everything is fine. In order to avoid interacting with her, I took a second job in the evening after the kids got home from school and finished their homework. So now, she just thinks I'm busy, not avoiding her. Edit. Our kids are elementary age, 7 and 9. The kids basically have their own floor with a bedroom, bathroom, and playroom. Meanwhile, my office is next to their bedroom. Also, I have our house wired up with cameras everywhere except our bedroom. I have a phone system in our house that our kids can directly dial us at any time with the push of a button. Additionally, my wife has worked part-time since our kids were born, but I can control my hours and schedule. That's why I provide the super majority of childcare. Typically, I always wake up early, usually at 5:30 or 6 a.m. I go to bed about 11:30 or midnight. On top of that, I have a couple of jobs and run a family business. As I mentioned, I out-earn my wife by 2x. But all in, it's more like 4-1 or 5-1. When our kids were younger, I often took them with me to conduct business. Now, I don't do as much anymore, but they come with me to my second job most evenings. Last spring was when I started leaving them home to run around in the morning. Honestly, it was more fall 2022. Typically, my wife won't wake up unless she has to work. Getting up on a non-work day is between 10 a.m. and noon, regardless of the day of the week. She goes to sleep between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. At one point, I wanted to talk to a lawyer, and 2 business associates said they wouldn't give me the name of a lawyer because I was overreacting. I even talked to a couple of people older than me, both male and female, and they all kept telling me I needed to move on and get over it. Interestingly, I have a whole deck of cards to play before I call a lawyer. One buddy of mine, who is 55, hung up on me when I asked him, but he called me back a week later and said he would drive me to meet with a lawyer if I still wanted to. We live in a large metro, but a small, affluent suburb. It's the type of place where everyone is very well connected. For instance, I took a vacation with my buddy last year, and we ran into my neighbor at the airport. By the time I returned home a few days later, people at my kids' school knew I went out of town and knew my buddy's name. Typically, I walk the same route every day with our dog. However, I had a foot injury and couldn't walk for 2 weeks. One day, I was in the local pharmacy, and some random lady asked me if I was doing okay. She hadn't seen me walking and said she knew what time to leave for work, based on when I walked by the park near her house, LOL. In the past, she has threatened to leave me several times. We've been together almost 20 years, but I always felt she was just acting out or blowing smoke. However, she put our children in the mix with this threat. I can admit, she hasn't made a threat like that since last year, but I can't help but feel I'm going to get ambushed one day. I even went to a couple of websites of divorce lawyers in our state, and they have calculators for alimony and child support. If she pulls the trigger on this, I'm losing big. Luckily, We do have a post-nuptial agreement that a lawyer created. I even talked to a buddy about renting his studio out of a building he is constructing, maybe just to sleep somewhere else while I figure this all out. But everyone is telling me to either suck it up or pay up for my freedom. My therapist in August asked me point blank if I still wanted to be married. I told him I don't know, but I have done some rough calculations on what that would cost. The number is so big, I don't even know if it's worth it. Interestingly, he told me he was in a similar position 15, 20 years ago. He still got divorced. He still had to pay. It was just money. He said he waited until his youngest turned 18, but he started planning his exit about 8 years prior, which is the only advice anyone is giving me. Just wait her out. Edit 2. I do not hate my wife, but after she threatened to take our children and leave me, I feel as if she crossed a line where I don't know what she is truly capable of. Personally, I would never say that, threaten, or do it to her. It hurt me she was willing to go there. I have expressed as much directly to her several times, and to therapists. She has apologized, but it still bothers me. I'm not considering divorce at this time. But there is an issue. Honestly, I don't know how this looks long term. Hopefully things get better. But today, I feel things could blow up if she chooses. So I'm keeping my distance. Edit 3. People are doubting how I can work like this. It's very simple. I work in data analytics. I do enterprise system implementations, specifically for data migration. It's a corporate job and is very flexible. Additionally, the family business I started, I can run with a cell phone and laptop. It goes 24/7, 365. On top of that, I officiate in various sports, high school, youth, and adult leagues. For instance, a high school varsity basketball game pays $125, and a JV pays $85. Lacrosse is similar. Flag football is $50. Hence, how can my kids go with me? A weekend tournament for soccer might be $45 game. You do 3 in 4 hours. It's all cash. I get exercise and relieve stress. In other words, I get paid to work out. Easy money. I go to the local park, gym, and school, and my kids can play with other kids or play on their Chromebooks. Edit 4. It's interesting that because I say I'm my kid's primary caretaker, I have to provide a detailed accounting of when and how I interact with my kids. Apparently, taking them to the playground isn't parenting because I'm not actively engaged with them, or being at home watching them while my wife is at the store and they play outside or play video games isn't parenting. Apparently, driving them to force from practice isn't parenting. Taking them to a library so they can read isn't parenting. Actually, parenting is only when I interact with my kids during set-aside time. Funny how that all works. Apparently, making breakfast and getting ready for school barely counts too, because it's only an hour. And picking them up from school and doing homework doesn't count, because that's only an hour. Funny, we have all these qualifiers now that I'm saying I'm doing it.